We continue our series looking at the state of each and every franchise across Major League Baseball. Today, we look at the Colorado Rockies. Let's get into it. What's going on, baseball fans? Jeremy Laracuente here for the Baseball Banter Broadcast. And as I said in the open today, we examine the state of the franchise for the Colorado Rockies. Now, we have to begin with the big acquisition that was made by the Rockies going into this 2022 campaign. Kris Bryant signed for a 7-year, $182 million deal with the Colorado Rockies, something that we covered here on the Baseball Banter Broadcast, so I will leave links to that down in the show notes below. But when you look at what this deal does for the Rockies, it's still perplexing to me, even after all this time later. I don't think that this one move really solidified the Rockies as a postseason contender, even with the expanded postseason. Now, it wasn't the only move that the Rockies made. They would trade for Randal Grichuk, who's going to have a phenomenal season out in Colorado. They also signed Jose Iglesias to lock down that shortstop position and help improve Brendan Ryan's defense as a second baseman. That partnership, to me, is really going to blossom for Brendan Rodgers because of being next to a stalwart defensively like Jose Iglesias. They would also add to their pitching staff with the addition of Alex Colomé, Chad Cole, and Jhoulys Chacín. I think that when you look at these acquisitions, the Rockies are trying to be competitive somewhat, but I don't necessarily think that they're going to have even remotely enough to finish higher than fourth. That was what I speculated on my National League West predicted rankings. I think that there's an opportunity for the Colorado Rockies, if everything goes well, to end in that third spot at best, but I don't see them finishing really in a position of postseason contention. Obviously, as the 2022 season unfolds, Kris Bryant is the X factor for this franchise. This is a player that you have to assume is going into this knowing that all of eyes are going to be on him. When opposing teams come into Colorado, they come into Coors Field, they're going to be game planning around Kris Bryant. And what he is capable of doing on the offensive side now is going to really see where the Rockies are for the next coming 7 years of this deal. Now, yes, there's a possibility that the Rockies could quickly turn this around. I think that offensively there are going to be bright spots in this lineup, but we'll get to more in the offense in just a moment. One other note to make mention of before we get into the state of each and every section of this team: Ryan McMahon would be offered and accept a 6-year, $70 million extension with the Colorado Rockies. This is a move that to me is a bit perplexing, but I understand where they're going. You bring in a superstar type player like Kris Bryant, who has a very big name notoriety. You lock up one of the better defensive third basemen and more underrated players in all of Major League Baseball in Ryan McMahon, and now you start to see where they're laying their foundation. Now the question really becomes, obviously, over the last several years, we've seen the Colorado Rockies, and I mentioned this on my Kris Bryant video, let their best players go or trade them away. Their franchise stars, Troy Tulowitzki, Nolan Arenado, and now Trevor Story is the most recent. But if the Rockies are finding themselves heading towards a postseason hunt, this could be the root and the foundation that they lay for this next championship type run. Now, as we look at the state of the pitching for the Colorado Rockies, it's always going to be a question. Pitching at Coors is always going to be difficult. Breaking balls don't break the same way in Colorado as they do when this team is on the road. So there's always going to be question marks, but there are some names to really like in this pitching staff for the Colorado Rockies. German Marquez, to me, is going to be one of the biggest and most inquired about pieces on this Rockies team in 2022. Again, I don't see the Rockies as a team that is really going to compete for the postseason, but they are going to have some guys that are capable of really solidifying a championship caliber team. Whether that be the Rockies over the next coming several seasons or on another team because they get moved at the deadline, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But I do think that there are some bright spots in this pitching staff. Again, German Marquez is just one of those names. I think Alex Colomé, if he can get himself corrected, will absolutely be a valuable commodity at the trading deadline should the Rockies decide to move him. But to me, pitching in Coors is really always going to be a difficult task to ask any pitcher to be able to withstand over the course of 81 games at the high elevation. So the grading for the state of this pitching staff is at best a C. for this franchise. As we look at the state of the offense, to me, it's a B- grade. And it only even really gets that high because of the elevation of Coors Field. To me, there's really no solid protection around Chris Bryant. Yes, you have guys who can hit for power like a CJ Cron. You have some guys who are capable of somewhat protecting him like a Ryan McMahon or a Randall Grichuk. I also think that you have some guys that are a little past where they're expected to be in Charlie Blackmon. But there's very little doubt that this is a team that is going to be better at Coors Field. But when they go on the road, there's not a whole lot to really hang your hat on in terms of their overall prowess at the plate. There's going to be no help and sustaining factor for Chris Bryant outside of maybe one or two guys that have a career year in 2022. As we look at the overall state of the franchise, it does not bode well for me, in my opinion, for the Colorado Rockies or their fan base. I think that this is a C- franchise at best, and more likely a D to D+ franchise in the 2022 campaign. There's a lot of question marks in their pitching staff, and even more question marks as to why they would hand out a 7-year, $182 million deal to Chris Bryant when they don't have enough support behind him. Especially when you think about you could have re-signed Trevor Story and really started to build the foundation here for the next championship run. Whether or not the Rockies truly believe that they're going to be able to compete at the top of this division with the likes of the Dodgers, Giants when they're playing well, and the Padres when they're all healthy is another question entirely. I don't know that the Rockies are going to have enough there. Plus, I don't believe that the front office and the ownership group for the Rockies is truly committed to winning the way they claim to be. We would see that commitment go right out the window when they traded away Nolan Arenado. So we'll have to wait and see how this franchise truly plays out in 2022, but I don't have high hopes. And my bold prediction for the Colorado Rockies is that Ryan McMahon will actually have a higher WAR, a wins above replacement, than Chris Bryant. But I want to hear from you guys. Let me know your feelings on this down in the comment section below. What are your feelings and your thoughts on the state of the Colorado Rockies? Where are their bright spots? Where are their biggest valleys and pitfalls in the 2022 campaign? Let me know all these things down in the comment section below, or find me over on Twitter at JLaracuente19, and we can keep the conversation rolling. As always, keep it locked into the entire JLMG family with We Sibs, the Granny Geek Show, and of course here on the Baseball Banter Broadcast. For sticking around all the way to the end, head over to baseballbanterbroadcast.com, use the promo code BANTER to save 5% off your order. Keep it locked in all season long as I continue to bring you the latest news, notes, my personal thoughts, theories, and opinions, as well as the state of each and every franchise here in Major League Baseball for the 2022 campaign. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.